Hello everybody, thank you for tuning into Podcast J, my unfiltered, tangled diary. I'm an expert in independence, I'm 23, I live in Buckinghamshire. In this podcast I share my very best advice, perspectives of my personal journey and experiences. How are you doing today? I'm actually feeling really good. I've been unemployed for about 6 weeks now, and honestly, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm grateful for the friends I have in my life. I have a roof over my head. I can eat comfortably every single day. I'm very active. I've been travelling up and down the country to watch and support my partner perform his music career. He's supporting me pursue something I enjoy and has given me the opportunity to find a new job in my own time, without having to rush and worry about the bills. It is kind of frightening looking for a new job. When I was in my last job, I was applying for anything and everything within my needs. I got loads of responses and I went for a first day with Amazon. It was a very straightforward job, overly organised, easy money to be honest, but it was just really awkward hours and I just thought, how can I pursue a job that doesn't give me any time to work on my own thing outside of work? I was at the house from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. and it just overwhelmed me thinking, I'm not going to eat till 10 p.m. and then I have to just rush to bed. I've got no time for my own life. I know there's plenty of work out there for someone with no qualifications, so I'm just going to spend time figuring it out without being panicked, if that makes sense. I don't want to waste time trying out loads of jobs. I left my job for many reasons, so I'm going to make it worth it. So this weekend, my partner had 2 shows in one night. It was a very long 24 hours. We almost didn't make it to the second show because both Google and Alex's iPhone couldn't find a petrol station on the motorway for 50 miles. I did panic a little, but we passed the service station, so I just hoped another one would come up, and thank God it did. So from Manchester to Birmingham, we walk into this drum and bass event and it looked so great, it was crazy. I haven't been to a venue like that since I was like 18 and it looked so good. I want to go there again for a night out when my partner's not working. His set was at 3 a.m, so as you can imagine, after driving for like 5 hours, exploring Manchester and watching his set, we was very tired by 3 a.m. It didn't quite stop me singing my heart out for an hour though. I woke up with no voice left, my whole body ached, my feet were killing me. They're still sore days later, but I tried to record my episodes on a Sunday, and this week I learned that is not the smartest thing because I have no voice and it could happen again. You might be able to tell that my voice is still healing, so excuse my voice please. It sounds really weird to me and I actually nearly cried about it last night. It's, what day is it now? Tuesday. I hate leaving this to the last minute because I spend so much time editing. Lost my words a little there. I spend so much time editing that I don't like to overdo it and underdo it. So I try and have a break while I'm editing it, and giving myself a day to do it, you'll just have to excuse it. You'll just have to bear with my masculine voice for a day because I sound very husky and this is the best my voice has been since Sunday. So yeah, no excuse for it. Anyway, moving on. So, quote of the day. I posted this quote that I love on my Burn My Mood page a while ago, and it says, become more aware of what is really worth your energy. Does something spring to mind when you hear this quote? Is something in your way? Are you overthinking something or spending too much time, energy on something that is out of your control? Just let it soak into your mind and remind yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed, is this really worth my energy? Something I tend to do when I get overwhelmed is I write a list of jobs and I write down all the things I need to focus on, like essential jobs, important things, and then things I can get round to doing. So if I'm having difficulty figuring out which one's more important, I'll look at the deadlines that are due and do those tasks first. And then if it's a big task, I'll just delegate a small amount of time every day and apply myself to it without trying to complete it all in one day. Otherwise, you just drain yourself and you'll never get around to each task that you need to do. You'll feel more fulfilled and more productive if you work on multiple things, I think, anyway. If it's a person you're worrying about and they're spending too much energy on them, you've got to really analyse things. Are they the right person for you? Are you putting yourself first? Do they care about how much time and emotions you're wasting on them? Someone that loves and cares about you will truly want you to care and love yourself. Sharing love for each other is always secondary. So, topic of the day, I know I've rushed into it, but I have so much to say because I've had such an overwhelming amount of responses to my last 2 episodes. I've had so many people reach out to me and appreciate what I've been talking about. I've had people say to me, I can't believe you actually just say the things you say, like it's very unspoken. And it does definitely empower me. And at the same time, it's like, why do other people not feel like they can discuss these things? And for example, the last 2 episodes, set boundaries with people. Like, you need to start caring about your own happiness and stuff. And I just want to brag, but on Sunday evening, I hit 200 downloads. Haven't paid for one advertisement yet. Proud moment. Everyone clap. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, welcome to the topic of the day. I know a few of you have been very patient for this episode, and I can't thank you enough for your support. This week's episode of Setting Boundaries is very different to the last 2. I mean, it's probably similar, but to me it's very different. I found this one the hardest. I'll be giving you some examples of how to set boundaries within your family, helping you identify whether your family needs to have boundaries set for your own peace and happiness. And I'll be sharing a lot of personal experiences and stories about my relationship with my family and why I've had to set boundaries with them. I don't want anybody to get too personally offended. So if any of my family are listening, just know this is my perspective and my opinion, and nothing I say is meant to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm setting boundaries, so yeah. Anyway, if you've listened from the beginning, I've provided in previous episodes a little brief story of my upbringing and my family. Not in depth whatsoever, but I could talk for years as it's confusing, and sometimes I share experiences and people think, well, that's a little unusual. I find it really easy to talk about this kind of stuff, just because I've always had to focus on it, deal with it, and it's just something I'm used to. It's something that's very normal to me. Constantly working something out, constantly healing. It's a lot of stuff. So I hope you find what I have to say very useful. If you're a new listener and you haven't caught up on my episodes, I'm just going to keep brief of what boundaries are because I have explained them previously, but you can listen back to previous episodes and get a full understanding. In simple terms, boundaries are having your personal space and beliefs respected. You are in control of your peace and you can choose how to be treated. It's self-care, honey. Now, you can have a strong relationship with your family, or you can have a more distant relationship. You can be disagreeing with your family, or you can agree on everything. Years ago, when I was a child to a teen, I grew up in a fairly toxic household and situations, none of which are within my control because I was a child, obviously. As I got older, I began setting boundaries in place. I started earning my own pocket, I started saving up, and began to refrain from sharing my wages with my family and discussing it with my mum. Sounds like a really awful thing to do, but at the end of the day, I earn it. I paid my way, and my mum was trying to put up the rent almost monthly, which we disagreed on a lot. I disagreed because she didn't really cook for me, she refused to do my washing, she would ask me to grab electric and things from the shop, which, to be honest, I actually didn't have a problem with, but I'm not going to pay more every month. I was paying rent from 16 and I was only earning £300 a month. Don't get me wrong, my mum wasn't charging me a lot for rent, but my mum and I would disagree over money quite often. We have very different perspectives. Also, side note, anyone that corrects me saying perspectives to perspectives, it's just a word I made up, obviously. I don't know how to say it right, and I write it as perspectives, but I still say it as prospectives, so I hope you know, when I say perspectives, I mean perspectives. Anyway, so my mum and I have very different perspectives when it comes to money. It was difficult for my mum when we were growing up because she was a single parent, working, and had 4 children. In my opinion, she spent money on things we didn't always need. The nice things like decorating, renovating the attic, converting the garden. The list does go on. She's a very creative woman. She starts new projects, and it's not a fault of hers, but she changes her mind, so she will start a new project very often. And this is what contributes to my opinion. When she first asked me to pay rent, it was because bills would get more expensive as the council supports you less when your child reaches a certain age. So due to my mum losing any support for me, I had to pay my way. I didn't mind. But as I got older, I was being charged more, and we would disagree about so many things why I was unhappy to pay more. Due to financial struggles, my mum couldn't always afford to do a food shop. We used to disagree because I was paying my rent and I wasn't even able to eat when I'd come home. As I'm getting older, my mum's working a cleaning job and working in a restaurant pub, so it worked out that she was doing full-time hours, sometimes more. So we would disagree much less. I would cook my own food and help out as and when. Then I moved in with my cousin for a month or so. When I moved back in with my mum, things had changed. So my little sister was over a certain age, but she didn't have a job. So my mum was up in the rent. Even though I wasn't happy about this, I could afford it. Deep down, I did understand that my mum just needed a little extra. I can't remember how in depth I went about this before, but my mum started asking for my payslips when I turned 18. She'd been asking for a couple days, then weeks, and we ended up arguing about it. She told me I needed to give it to her to email some lady at the council. Now, I may look like some dumb blonde, but I understand how important privacy is. And protecting your own money, why would I need to give anyone my payslip? I'm not applying for anything. I'm not financing anything. I pay my bills on time and so on. We argued about it a lot. She'd ignore me for days unless I gave her it. So when things calmed down, I asked her, why? She was distressed about it. Who doesn't get stressed about money? I definitely do. She explained to me that the council tax went up from when I moved back in, which also reminded me that she asked me exactly what date it was I moved back in a few weeks prior to this. So she said she racked up £8,500 debt because it was backdated to when I moved in. I lost it. I was so angry straight away. She was telling me that she was sending my payslip off with my details on so the woman would take the debt out of my wages. Because that's what happens when you don't pay debt. You can send it off to a debt company and they will have an agreement with your employer to take the wages out of your pocket before it gets to you. I know it works that way because I have spoke to people I've worked with before, and I know that there are many debt companies that can take the money out of your wages before you even get it. I explained to her that I paid her rent in cash over the last 2 years. I was fuming, so we were obviously shouting at each other about it. I was studying to be an accountant at the time. You can't be in debt as an accountant, especially not £9,000. Could you imagine what that would have done to my credit score? Council tax is the responsibility of the tenant, which was not me. So because I refused to pay more, because my mum wasn't truthful about it, she didn't consider that that could affect me for the rest of my life. Anyway, she told me to move out. Well, we argued, she didn't talk to me for a few days, and then decided to kick me out as I gave her the monthly rent, or it was weekly, I can't remember. Now, there are loads of features in this story that have caused me to set boundaries within my family and with my mum. So around the time of this, my sister didn't speak to me either. She pretended I didn't exist. And I'm not entirely sure of every reason. Maybe because we were just a bit different people. She didn't like it, she didn't like me. But my mum ignored me all the time too. The only time these people would talk to me is to argue with me. And when we'd argue, they'd always say, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Like some punishment. I mean, to be honest, I didn't always hate it. Sometimes just not talking was alright, but it's a lot of tension and it's very toxic all the time like that. I actually made a running joke around the time because when I lived there, literally nobody would talk to me. So when I had my friends over, that was probably the only rare time anyone actually said anything to me. But as my friends know, they didn't really talk to me much. It went on for months with my mum, and I think it went on for a couple of years with my sister. We disagree a lot. We have completely different mindsets. We just don't get on like that. There would be times I'd get home from working 2 jobs in one day, and my sister would cook a full massive oven dish of tuna pasta bake, which serves 6 to 8 people. I'd ask to have the leftovers as I was just so tired and had no energy to cook. And this bitch would eat the whole fucking thing. Sometimes I'd check the oven to see if she'd left any. Sometimes I had 2 servings. So I'd be like, oh, can I have a bit? She would reheat it and eat it just so I couldn't eat it. Anyway, it's very petty. We used to argue about it, but now it's kind of funny. I imagine all siblings that we have just piss us off and do petty things. But my mum would always say, well, she does eat all of it. What, for 8 people? For 8 fucking people? When I moved out of my mum's 4 years ago, there was only a couple of times, but she'd asked to borrow money off me. Only to help with food shop, or she was having trouble tying over to the month because her wages had been delayed or something. But she never asked again after that. I wasn't very nice about it, and my mum knew when I lived with her that I would lend money to my friends all the time. I shouldn't feel the need to explain myself, but naturally I do. Morally, I should have just helped. I mean, I didn't have the money she needed, but I could have done something. Yet, I refused. I have very strong opinions and reasons as to why I act and make the decisions that I do. Fucking hell, his dick must be small. But I'll give another example. My mum knew I was going to buy a car on the weekend that she kicked me out. I was devastated because I had already discussed that I was going to move out in a year's time. I was buying house stuff and saving my money. I had my first car ready to be bought by payday, and then it was just taken away. My priorities had to change, and I'll always remember that it took me a year longer to get a car. I didn't even think it was possible to buy a car when all my wages were going on bills and rent, but I learned how to budget. I was very strict. And then I was really depressed for a few months, so I didn't really eat much, and I lived in a flat I fucking hated. My friend at the time lost her nan. My friend was in the process of getting a new car and was really upset about her nan. So it was a really stressful situation for her. So I offered to buy the car and sell it for her to avoid the stress and worry. So I did buy the car, and then I just did a little check on Go Compare. Joking, I used Compare the Market. And turns out the insurance was well cheap. So I had a little bit saved up from being depressed, and I worked out my outgoings, and I worked out, okay, I can afford to pay this insurance. I could start driving. I actually regretted it at the time, but that's another story for another day, ladies and gents. Off the topic again, my bad. The car. So I had to stop this guilty stress and anxiety from financial situations with my family from happening. I had to tell my mum that I won't help her. My mum and I didn't talk for like 6 months when she kicked me out. She texted me maybe once after a few months offering help, and I was still filled with all this resentment, anger, and I was so upset with her, and I told her I would never accept her help. At the time, all the help I was going to need was never going to be given to me. By the time she offered me help, I didn't need it, and I really did not want it. I would say we have an understanding of that now. It's been like 4 years, but we have a much better relationship. That was a very tough boundary, but it had to be set. My mum and I had so many disagreements when I was growing up. My mum used to get on with my friends when I had them over. Now this might seem like I'm being over the top, but truthfully, I still feel the same way about this now. I know my mum was just trying to be friendly, but at the same time, where my mum and I are so close in age, we have the same kind of humour, similar friends, we have similar perspectives with certain things, and I think the reason we clash so much is because 1 minute she'd play the friend role, and then sometimes she would play the parent role. I don't think she ever meant harm by that now, but as you can imagine, if you don't play the role the whole time, you will clash. I learnt this in my CBT training actually. I mean, I kind of knew it, but like, I used to always talk about this, but as I've been studying CBT, I've learnt that this is actually a real thing. So sometimes my mum and I would argue as a parent and child would, but there have been moments I've had to play the role of the parent too. And sometimes my mum and I would argue about stuff like me keeping my business to myself and not sharing why I'm pissed off. We would argue, and granted, if you don't want to talk about something, you'll naturally speak a certain way and it will come across rude. Now, something I could really not stand is when my mum would message my friends, like on social media, or send them a text. She wasn't doing it in a harmful way, but I absolutely hated it. I told her I didn't like it, but I think because she didn't think she was doing anything wrong, she would just keep doing it. My friends would tell me, and I would tell them, I don't like it. They'd be like, oh, why, Jay? Aren't you overreacting? And I still to this day do not think I'm overreacting. I think it's strange. I think it's an invasion of my privacy. Like, that's my life, my friends. I set that boundaries with my friends a long time ago. See, my mum, she found it, she didn't respect that boundary straight away. One of my friends started working with my mum. I guess I didn't care too much because they worked together. But when we fell out, I told my mum every single detail why we fell out. And she understood exactly why we weren't friends. Probably because she got to know her better. Or what I told her seemed like such a shock, like, wow, you really don't know someone. For whatever the reason was, she understood I didn't like it and respected the boundary and stopped messaging my friends. Ever since I moved out of the family home, I respect my own boundaries and I'm at peace at home now. I've never had any conflict in my home. It's never tense. I don't have to be made to feel like a criminal for just being myself. When I first started visiting my family after I moved out, the hatred of my role had changed. They all had the same hostility with each other, which at first surprised me, as they all used to mutually hate my guts. Even though the hatred and tension was nothing to do with me, I would leave relatively early. I'm protecting my peace. If someone tried to pick arguments with me, I would just leave. I'm not having toxic negativity in my life at all. If I'm not happy with something, I just leave now. I used to feel guilt for being told, you're just running away from your problems. I have learned that I'm just protecting my peace. It might seem like I'm doing something wrong, hurting someone else's feelings, but at the end of the day, my peace, my needs, and my happiness matter too. Boundaries can hurt feelings, but they're only going to hurt the feelings of the person who doesn't want to respect you. If someone asks you for something, and you say yes or no, they're not emotions. It's not going to hurt you. Yes and no are not relevant to feelings at all. It's just a boundary. You shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel like it's easier to say yes. If you don't like it, just say no. If you don't want to be in a position or have an expectation, say no. Do you ever feel like your family invade your personal space? Like, do they just turn up to your house unannounced? It invades your privacy. They might not mean to come across that way, but you need to tell them, please, call me first. Can you let me know first? If you want time to yourself and your family are calling you up, expecting you to help them out with something, you shouldn't feel obliged to do so. It's self-care to say no. It's okay to say no. Once you become a yes man, there really isn't any boundaries. I always say, call me if you need anything, but I still know how to say no. Because sometimes I feel like people don't call me when they need help. They just know that I would drop anything for anyone to help everyone out. Now I try to help out much less than I used to. I do get that people think, oh, but that's your family, that's your mum. At the end of the day, that's really not a healthy way of thinking. You should be able to protect your boundaries without feeling like you are negatively affecting anyone else. When you do set boundaries, you might feel guilty. You might feel like you've upset someone or made them angry. The truth is, you shouldn't. If someone hasn't had boundaries sprung upon them before, they might react with emotions. Just give them time to adjust. Give them a chance to respect your boundaries. If you've left a toxic relationship, you wouldn't give them another chance. And I mean the time you actually left it, to anyone out there who keeps going back. Once you value yourself more and respect your boundaries, you're very unlikely to give into someone who intrudes your peace. So if you have a toxic family member, act accordingly. Don't let them ruin your peace or dictate your actions. Do what's best for you, always. If you feel like your family don't see you very often or don't make effort with you, you need to communicate that this is a need of yours that is unmet. It's not your full responsibility to keep up appearances. If you feel like your family don't spend enough time with your child or don't make enough time and effort with your child, you need to tell them. It's not my responsibility that my child knows you and loves you and respects you. It's your responsibility. If you feel like your family are asking you for too much, it can feel so one-sided and it can feel like they're taking advantage of your kindness. You need to address this. Like I explained in the previous episode, it's probably best to set your boundaries when you're not angry, when you've cooled down, you've chilled out, and whatever it is that's bothering you is still bothering you. You're just calmer. You're in a better mindset to address the situation. You don't have to explain why you're setting the boundary, because if you explain yourself, it can almost be seen like you're doubting yourself. For me personally, I found setting boundaries with my family the toughest. I felt like communication was almost impossible, but whatever your needs are, communicate them. Ask them to be respected and expect that people in your life will respect the boundaries that you set. If you respect your boundaries, others will too. And when you start to practice this, when you do set boundaries more often, you will feel more at peace. You can begin to heal and feel more protected and secure mentally. This is because you're not constantly experiencing invasions of your privacy.
Nobody will continue to drain your emotional energy. Setting these boundaries are making clear to others exactly what you need and require. It's putting limits in place to replace the areas of which once hurt you, and you're not allowing this to hurt you anymore. I mean it. We're not allowing ourselves to be hurt anymore. When you create healthy limits to your relationships, you are providing a healthy space for them to grow. You will be much happier when you set boundaries because you're saying no to what creates discomfort in your life. Whatever makes you feel uncomfortable, whatever makes you feel like that gut feeling when you're like, I don't like this. You are in control. You can change that. Just say no. All you've got to do is start the conversation. You must communicate. The silent treatment does not create boundaries. Sure, you can go for a walk, call off, calm down, have a little bit of space, but you have to end up having this conversation. If you feel like someone's mistreating you, you need to address that situation and have the conversation. If the other person's not willing to have that conversation, they do not respect you. They do not care about how you feel. So, threaten a plan of action. They will have a consequence. Tell them you'll leave. Tell them that you're not going to do this for them. You're going to stop doing these things. Stop giving them privileges if they're not giving you the necessary equal amount of effort and time that you put in. If you're unsure how to start the conversation, I'll just give you some examples. So, let's say you tell your family personal things and they share it with their friends, other members of the family, and you can just hear them downstairs spilling the beans about you, bitching about you, and you're thinking, I just told her this in confidence. You can say something like, I value your trust and I enjoy being able to speak freely around you and be open and honest. Please don't share what I trust you with to your friends and others. Otherwise, I won't share stuff with you if you continue to share it. If you feel like your family show up unannounced, you can say something like, I love spending time with you, but I do need my personal space though. When you want to see me, please call first or text me first. I know so many of us feel like we're having to explain ourselves, and I know we all feel like we're hurting someone else's feelings, but you have to resist that urge to be apologetic for your own needs. Try not to say sorry when you're setting your boundaries. You deserve to discuss what you need. You deserve to be respected, and you deserve to feel happy, and that is why boundaries are so important. It enables you to do exactly what you need. It enables you to feel empowered and avoid toxic situations. That person might be toxic, but if you can stop it from dimming your light, you can make clear to the person you're communicating with that they can share their needs. They can share what they want, that you'll listen. Communication is so important on both sides. You see these videos on the internet of these really successful people who commonly share how their relationships last. They always say communication. You can always apply this to every kind of relationship you have. So that can be relationship with friends, romantic relationships, and relationships with colleagues, and relationships with your family. You just must stick to the boundaries you set. Respect yourself. Even if the person you've known for a long time challenges that, test the waters, see if they can go against the boundary. Tell them, I'm not settling for less than this. I'm not dealing with this. It's normal for someone you know for a long time to sort of challenge it because they've known it's been okay previously. But be assertive. You can do it. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. Make it clear that you're serious. And if they don't respect your boundaries or needs, then there's going to be a consequence. Like, you're not going to share stuff with them. You're not going to include them in certain things. That you're going to keep your distance. Or that you'll leave them, or that you'll move out, things like that. It sounds dramatic, but it's not. It's not dramatic at all. One of my sisters asked me once, why don't you come over very often anymore? Because my own peace of mind was my answer. My peace of mind, it needs to stay out of toxic situations. I don't need constant conflict. I avoid being in toxic situations now, and when conflict begins in my mum's house, I just go home. When I lived with my guardian when I was like 14, he wasn't very nice to his girlfriend one day. And I told him I only lived with him because he told me he changed. and he was less angry and less abusive. And I'm in my bedroom one day and I can hear him calling his girlfriend an incompetent cunt, being so mean to her, nasty to her, being just so abusive and verbally attacking this girl. It was so mean that I was going to explode. And when she left the house, she was crying. I put my head over the banister, I've stormed up to it, and I'm like, you shouldn't speak to her like that. You shouldn't name call. And he was angry, he told me to stay out of it, it weren't my business. And I told him, do you think that's a good example of how men should treat me when I get a boyfriend? And I remember him making some comment, but it just made him think, like, he obviously just didn't want me to get involved. But I was like, just don't treat her like that. When she comes back, you say sorry. You speak to her and you listen to her. I'm not sure if he's changed his ways, but he definitely didn't do it around me after that, and they broke up. He was abusive to me a year or so later, so clearly he didn't change. It was a boundary he stopped respecting, so I didn't go back. He kicked me out, but when I got social services involved, all of a sudden he wanted me to go home. I was like, no, what the fuck? So I refused. Abuse is abuse. Toxic is toxic. Stop giving people the chance to do it to you again. Second chances mean 2 chances. 2 times. Not 3, not 4, not 5. You can give someone a chance to change, and if they don't, get rid of it. Cut that shit off. Just please love yourself more. It does get better. I want you to remember that you can say no. You can say no whenever you like. If people react negatively, that's okay. They're learning. And it's okay for someone to not like what you've said. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Their responsibility is to respect your boundaries. If they care about you, your responsibility is to be clear and confident with the boundaries you set. Don't lower your standards. People will match your respect when you show respect for the limits you've set. Be patient. It's not an overnight process. But keep going because it will work out for you. I'm really interested about your thoughts on this topic. I know I've gone on about my own family, but I tend to find it a lot easier to share my opinion through my experiences and what I've done. And I feel like when I learn things, I learn a lot more when I learn about somebody else's perspective. Hey, look at that. I said the word right. But send me a message about your thoughts. Send me a voice note if you like. I'd love to voice it on the show. I've had such a flood of messages this week. So I'm only going to share a couple. But I will share more throughout each episode. Just to keep the conversation flowing about each topic. I don't want people to feel like once I've made an episode about a topic, like it's over. Like I'll happily keep bringing up things and answering confessions, questions, anything you need advice on, because I am here for you. So thank you for sending all your voice messages to me. Without those, I wouldn't be able to have this part of the show. To send me your questions, confessions, or anything you need advice on, find @podcast.j on Instagram. Send me your voice note to play on the pod, or type me a message out and I'll just add this guy's voice over it. If you want to be kept anonymous, I really don't mind. So I'm just going to share a couple ones that I've had recently. So voice note 1. Are you ready? All of the voice note messages I'm going to put up today are all people that have just said, can you keep it anonymous? That's fine. So I just put it into Google Translate because I can't remember the voice app that you can use funny voices on. So here's the first one.
I have a confession. I act like I know everything when I don't.
I need to work on that and find a better voice translator thing because that's just Google Translate and she sounds really slow and funny. What it says is, I have a confession. I act like I know everything when I don't. And fake it till you make it, babe. I love this. I feel like I know it all, but I truly don't. And it's fine. It's fine being like that. People trust what you say more, and it comes across as more assertive. So keep doing that. Anyway, okay, for the second voice note part, Google's going to tell us.
How do you create healthy boundaries without threats?
Interesting. To be honest, I have been speaking about this for 3 hours on all my episodes. I feel like, sorry if you can hear a bunch of children outside my window. There is actually a primary school right outside my flat. And there's nothing I can do to cancel out that sound. It sounds like, with this question, the way it's worded, like without threats, it sounds like you're dealing with a narcissist. Healthy boundaries can be something that you keep to yourself, and you can share them. Like, you could say, I don't stay in toxic relationships, I leave, or when I feel uncomfortable, I leave. In my opinion, there is a consequence of bad situations, and you make a plan to put yourself first, and suggest if they don't enable you to do what you like, that there's going to be a consequence. It's not a threat, it's for you. So you could say, well, I'll leave if I'm not respected. And it's easier to do this if you are creating a new relationship with someone. But if your friend or relationship's been around for a while, then I would probably say listen to my recent episodes of setting boundaries to suggest new ways to introduce boundaries, just because it's a very good question. But I imagine you haven't listened to the first or second episode. If you feel like I need to elaborate more, please reply to my message and let me know. The third voice note just says Netflix recommendations. So, I've watched so much on Netflix over the last 2 years. Seasons you can binge watch are my absolute favourite. So, Money Heist, top tier. Ozark, watch every single season and episode. It is so good. I thought it was a horror film, so I wasn't going to watch it. And then Alex was like, oh no, it looks really good. At least watch the first episode. I was like, okay. And oh my god, it's so good. Prison Break's really, really good. Apparently it's like ancient, but I found it really good. Peaky Blinders is obviously top tier. Power used to be really good. I don't know what it's like now, because half of it's not on Netflix. Good Girls is so good. I used to listen to that all the time when I couldn't sleep. And there's a program called Me, You, Her, and it's about a relationship of a married couple that introduces a third wheel, and they become like a 3-way relationship. So that's quite good as well. When you finish watching them, just ask me again, because I've got so many. I don't want to list like more than 5. I don't know, that was probably more than 5. And then I don't know why I'm saying their voice notes. Everyone's only putting messages, which is fine. But after listening to Google trying to translate that, she just sounds like she doesn't want to be here. So I'm just going to read them out. And the 4th message I got was, what is something that you have kept from your partner? Like a secret, right? Currently, I don't actually keep anything from my partner, I don't think. I don't think so. However, something I used to lie about in an old relationship. I actually said I quit smoking, but then the guy was fucking cheating on me, so I carried on smoking behind his back the whole fucking time. So, if you ever come across this episode, I was a dirty smoker the whole time. How about that? Didn't seem so criminal when I smoked before, and you told me it was disgusting, but just saying, I carried on a secret, and that was my lie in the whole relationship, so ha ha ha. Back to positivity. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to send me the confessions and messages and stuff, please do. I find it really interesting and really fun. I didn't get many, but that's probably because I don't actually have that many followers. I'll try and put them on my personal and my podcast page to get more interactions. Because I share so much on social media, I actually think I get less engagement. But anyway, I'll figure it out. Anything you want to ask away. You can ask me something outrageous or normal. I literally am an open book. I have no shame, okay? If you want to ask me about intimate things, I don't care. If you want to ask me my opinion on controversial things, I really don't care. I will voice all of them. Just remember, I can't be cancelled if I don't currently exist. So it's fine. But that's it for today, everybody. I know it's a little bit of a short episode than I anticipated. Because I thought that everything I bullet pointed down, I was like, oh my god, this is going to turn into a really long episode. And also because I've been so worried about my voice. Like, I know it's off. I can feel it in my fucking throat. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I always aim to make the episodes about an hour. Please come back every single week for a new episode. Keep getting involved on my social media pages because it really helps me. And if you have any constructive criticism, comments to make, please let me know, because it is so motivating and it really, really helps me out. I've had such a nice response recently. I've even had people reach out to me who don't really talk to me very often, or I haven't heard from in years. And it's really, really nice. I'm very grateful. Please make sure you check out Podcast J on social media. Get involved. Support the podcast in any way possible. Click the download button. Follow. Share it to your story. Put the link in your story. I don't know. Whatever you can do, I owe you the world. Have a great week. Have a great day. And I'll see you later.